second, I promise. New questions emerging about Fidel Castro. A newspaper in Spain says Fidel is in, quote, very grave condition. He's 80 now. His health is raising many questions about what will happen to Cuba after Castro is gone. Joining us from Washington is Daniel Restrepo. He's the director of America's project at the Center for American Progress. So what happens when he's gone? Is it all Raul and same song, second verse, or what?
It's hard to say exactly what will happen.
We don't really know, do we?
No, I don't think anybody really knows what will happen. A lot will depend on how Raul and the people around him decide to deal with the inevitability of change on the island, whether they want to be a part of moving Cuba in a free and democratic direction, or whether there'll be a last gasp at repressive policies to try holding on to control for as long as possible.
You know, I wonder if there's a way to know yet. Do we have the intelligence to know whether there is a group underground ready to cause trouble which could lead to change upon Fidel's death or not?
I think we've unfortunately, and by we I mean the United States, has cut itself off from Cuba over the last 40-some-odd years to a point where we don't have a very good feel for what's going on the island. There probably are reformers within the ranks of the regime and elsewhere on the island who are waiting for a moment when it's safe to raise their heads. But really, time will tell. We've really been isolated from Cuba, and unfortunately, we simply do not know.
You know, I wonder if the Cuban government knows, too. You know, you've been to Cuba, I'm sure. A lot of us have been down there. And if there's more than one person standing in a place, they kind of stop that. They don't want people communicating. But it's a brave new world out there, even in Cuba, and people can communicate. And is it possible, you think, that people with their neighbors and others around the corner have gotten together and said, if this happens, then we're going to do this? And would Raul put it down in a way that would be ugly?
One of the most frightening things about Fidel Castro's legacy in Cuba is that no two Cubans trust one another. There's a real distrust within society. So it's hard to say whether they've been able to overcome that and draw together in a way. But the future of Cuba lies on the island with the Cuban people. I think there is an inevitability to change, and the question of how peaceful or not peaceful that change will be lies, as you said, with Raul Castro and the people around him, as whether they try keeping things tamped down, or whether they realize that they have to be part of the solution rather than trying to grasp desperately to power.
Wouldn't you guess that the day Fidel dies, or let's be as honest as we know how to be, the day they admit to us that he's dead, that there's a plan in place under which a clampdown happens, at least in the short run?
Certainly. The regime, Raul and the people around him have been been part of that process since August. The regime has taken steps to tighten controls in certain important aspects, and it'll likely be that once word is let out that Fidel has passed away, that we'll see that in the immediate aftermath. But really what happens in the weeks and months after that, as the regime kind of sorts itself out and as potential reformers within the regime kind of begin to stick their heads out, that's where the real kind of the dynamic will form itself in terms of how this process is going to move forward.
Daniel Restrepo, I have a feeling we'll see more of you in the days to come. Daniel, good to be thanks. Saddam